righty. Well, good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, depending on whenever and wherever you are listening. I want to thank you for tuning into the Perspectives on Leadership podcast. I'm your host, Steve Shaw. I always start with gratitude. I always thank everybody for listening to this podcast. There's a ton out there you can listen to, and I'm just very thankful that you're choosing to listen to this one. My name is Steve Shaw. I'm very proud to be a deputy fire chief for the town of Jupiter Fire Rescue Department. Just after retiring from Fort Lauderdale for just shy of 25 years, honored to be part of the fire engineering family as a podcast host, an author, and a presenter as FDIC. Just want to make sure everybody understands every time we do this podcast, the idea is pretty simple. And it's been like this since day one. We take a concept or an idea and just dive down that rabbit hole. I love to pick the brains of people in the fire service from all over. And I'm excited about this one in particular, and I'll explain why in a second. But before that, thank you to David Rhodes, Diane Rothschild, and the Clarion team for allowing me to do this. And especially to my chief, Chief Donato, for allowing me to continue this platform to bring value to the members of our fire service. So good morning. It's often said that we get to do this job. In other words, we don't have to do this. We get to do this job. We get to do a ton of amazing things that most people in their lives don't ever get a chance to experience. So today I get to have my brother, Miami-Dade Fire Rescue Captain Rusty Shaw, on the podcast. So to say that I'm excited about this is a little bit of an understatement. My brother and I have had interesting journeys through the fire service, him and mostly in Miami-Dade, and for me in my service. And I'm really excited to have him on the podcast today to talk about everything from where we come from in the fire service, our experiences with our departments, and a bunch of other things that are tangential to that. My brother's a captain and works as the Venom One team over there, which I think we're going to enjoy talking about today, and a bunch of other things. But I'm just very excited to have him on the podcast today. These past couple of weeks, though, have been very bittersweet for a lot of the fire service. For example, I'm recording this podcast at home this week during FDIC 2025. I had to bow out this week because of my EFO class that was scheduled during the same week as FDIC, only to have it canceled a few weeks later. So I'm a little bit troubled by that. Yeah, it's a double whammy for me. Also, as most of you are aware, Captain Bill Gustin, the legend, the GOAT, our old humble Captain Gustin, died unexpectedly a few weeks ago. And interestingly enough, Rusty and I, my brother and I, have both had some interesting journeys with Bill through the years. Rusty having worked with him in Miami-Dade, and myself having taught with him and just mentored under him in different ways. So I know that's going to come up in the conversation today too. So before I let Rusty introduce himself, some of the things I was thinking about in preparation for this conversation was family. First thing is family. In the fire service, the people we work with often become our second families, and that's a beautiful thing. But at the end of the day, we have to remember that we have a family at home waiting for us. So the fire service is one of those things where it's so easy to get so involved and caught up and swept up into the amazing things we get to do. But we've got to remember our family at home, whatever that looks like. And that's so important to have that balance. The second thing I think about is the focus on the positive, the need to focus on the positive. We struggle with this in the fire service, and you can see that through social media posts and some of the conversations we have at the firehouse. It's so important that we take the time to give gratitude, to champion the good and what we do and the joy of what we're capable of. And we'll talk about that too. The last thing I was thinking of is this idea of constant, gentle pressure. My former medical director years ago, Dr. El Sanati, used to say this all the time: constant, gentle pressure. And I think about that a lot. And for Rusty and I, and this will definitely come up today, our father pushing us into the fire service and pushing us along the way in various parts of our lives. The push we give people today, that sometimes that little push that can result in such amazing things from the people around us and the teams we're involved with. So I was thinking about that as well. Anyway, so I'm excited to have this conversation with my brother today. I usually intro and read a bio. It seemed kind of weird to do that for my brother, so I figured I would let him do that for me. So, Russ, thanks for being on the podcast today. So tell everybody a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having on me here. First of all, so it's an honor to be on here. Rusty Shaw, as you already introduced me. I've been currently with Miami-Dade County. I've been with them for the last 20 years. I've been a captain with them for the last 9, and I'm currently, as Steve said, I'm the bid-in captain on Venom One. And I would say my career in the fire service starts back when I was 18. And I would say even a little bit further back when I was in 8th and 9th grade, seeing you and Dad go through the Volunteer Fire Academy. And I just got the privilege of watching you guys go through that and enjoy it so much. And that just sparked such a passion in you. So I remember in high school watching you go get that call on your pager and like 2, 3 in the morning, rushing out of the house, jumping in your red Isuzu pickup truck without power steering, flooring it through stop signs and even going through some red lights, I would say, to get to that station because you knew that you had to be there. You had to be there to solve whatever call that was. So I just remember that, and I'm like, man, that would be really neat when I turn of age to be able to do that. And that's what I did. I started out with Coral Springs Fire on the Volunteer Academy, and I just hit the ground running, fell in love with it, loved the physical aspect, the mental toughness, and I did have a little detour. I went to the military right after high school. I was in the reserve, so that was only a year detour of training, where basic training and tech school. Came right back in, went right into the fire academy. Right after EMT school, I got picked up with Coral Springs Fire. Had a chance to transfer over to Fort Lauderdale Fire for the next 4 years, and that was a really neat opportunity to be able to work with my brother. Learned a lot there, and then an opportunity for Miami-Dade County opened up, and there was a hard decision for me. But I think what drew me was the specialty units and the specialty teams. And looking back now, I would say that was a really good decision for me because I'm still involved in some of the special ops teams that I absolutely love. So air rescue is one of my favorites. I was able to become a flight medic in 2009, get a bid out there at Air Rescue North, and just had a blast and just ran some really high speed calls. Like we outfit our helicopters after like a special op like type helicopter. So we do a lot of hoist training, a lot of like Bambi bucket firefighter training from the helicopter, diver deployment, some really, really high speed stuff. Dive rescue, I'm still involved with. We have a really amazing program. And then, of course, Venom One, which is just kind of got thrown on me, and I just fell in love with that. So, yeah, and I would say that's kind of that's trickled down into our family, right? So we have 3 cousins that I think that Arthur started. He was the younger one, but he saw our joy and passion for it. And then he went after it. He worked for Palm Beach County, and then his brothers followed. So all 3 of our cousins are in. And just to continue, that's trickling down into my immediate family. So Tristan is my oldest son. He's 15. He just started with the Boca Fire Explorers. And he's really enjoying that. And it's just it's a joy for me to see him going through what we went through. He's got to polish his boots, get his uniform pressed, and show up. And Dad's not there to have his back. So if he messes up, he's getting dropped. So and then I have 2 other kids as well, Gabriel and Aaliyah. Gabriel's 13 and Aaliyah's 12, and I'm hoping that they go through at least that program. Not saying that they're going to be firefighters, but I just love the paramilitary aspect of programs like the fire department, but also like explorers like that. And the only thing that I would kind of correct you when you talk about, what is it, constant gentle pressure, and you bring Dad into the mix. So what I thought about that immediately was constant and pressure, and you can just subtract the gentle out of that, right? But yeah, no, it's because of him, right? He started. It's because of him, that drive that he put in us. And we needed that. We needed that because maybe we didn't have the maturity to follow it through. So I am very thankful for that push.
Yeah, you open up a lot of doors there, and I think like you, when I look around and seeing our entire family involved in some way, shape, or form, I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, who would have ever thought? I mean, I remember when Dad came to us, or Dad came to me, and he's like, "Hey, Steve, we're gonna go be volunteer firefighters." And I was 18. I'm like, "Dad, I got no time. I'm working at Publix. I got this. I got school. I got scouts. I got soccer. I got too much going on." And to your point, Steve, gosh dang it, we're gonna do this. All right, Dad, let's do it. But very shortly afterwards, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
This is amazing. Yeah. But he had to show that to us. And I think about that a lot in terms of that impact we have on family, friends, people outside the fire service. In Jupiter right now, we are seeing this. There's a lot of people in the town that have never, they don't know about the fire service. They don't know what it is other than a fire truck driving by or a rescue truck driving by. They don't know what it's about. So having someone to explain that to them and explain what the vision is and what we do beyond just simply the running calls and the things we do in the community it's important. People need to know that. But going back to family, I think you're right. It's special. It's wonderful that, as you mentioned, our whole family is in this. Our three cousins, your oldest is getting involved. I'm sure that I'll have these talks with my two as they grow up. But just looking back, how much the fire service has given us. It's given us a career. It's given us a home, a family. It's amazing. So if you had to take those experiences and let's say distill them down, like when you think back with your career, 27 years total in, mine 30, what comes to your mind as things that you're sitting with these days that, I don't know, you just dwell on that this career kind of birthed or gave you the ability to do?
No, it's good. And I, as I think about that, that is, that's an evolving answer. I think that if you would have asked me that 10 years ago, my answer would be different than what it is today. So, and it might be different 5 years from now, but what that is today, the biggest life lesson that I've learned is that life is short and it can be taken from you at any second. And I think that starts, we were 18 running calls. I remember one of my first bad traffic accidents was a rollover in a convertible and a middle-aged guy. It was a, signal 745, we call it down here in the county. And I got to witness that at age 18. And that just kept happening, and I'm just like, holy cow, these people are so young and they're just on their way to the grocery store and life was taken from them. So it's short, it's unexpected. You don't know when it's going to come. And then as I'm continuing working, I noticed that it's not just the patients that I'm running on, it's my brothers and sisters in the fire department. So whether they're getting sick, some get cancer, some have a traumatic accident, some take their lives. And that's probably the most painful for me. Mm-hmm. So I think the more I go, the more that sits in. And then, so what does that teach me to do? It teaches me to sit back and reflect and say, where are my priorities? Right. So that's what it's taught me, is like, I have to have my priorities set. As much as I love this job, that I can't make it the foundation of my life. I can't build my life on the foundation of a fire. It's got to be something bigger. So that's where I take my faith very seriously. We were both born and raised in I would say a Christian home and a Christian school. And that I've kind of dove a little deeper with that. Like, I'm very active in my church. You came out to see me preach this past year, which is really a neat experience. I'm really involved in men's ministry at my church. Even within the fire department, it's a very big passion for me, is sharing the love of the Lord, So that's got to be number one in my life, is the foundation in the Lord. Second is my family. Am I pouring into them? Am I intentional with them? Am I spending time with my kids? Am I present, or am I working swaps, overtime, details? And can I disconnect from the job and come home and engage with them? And if for those that are married, can you pour into your wife? Can you pour into your husband? Are we doing that? That's got to be a priority. And then after that, I would say, like, it helps me to focus on my health. I can have all these things, right? I can have the best job in the world, great family, my faith is there, but then I'm not taking care of myself, So my health is very important. I'm very into health and wellness and fitness. And then I would say then the fire department would come, maybe after my close friends. But I have to prioritize it like that, because if it's built on the fire department, that's not a permanent thing. We retire. So I got to have something else, starting with the Lord. So I would say it's got to be my biggest life lesson. I might give you something tactically 10 years ago when I was working with Captain Gustin. But right now, that's what it is, So
I like that you went there, and I think that again, it opens up doors and perspective. And you're right. Through the course of our careers, things change. We evolve. We're constantly, whether we do it intentionally or just through the course of the job, we're reinventing ourselves. We're finding ourselves reinvented. When I look back, I I think you're right. I think tactically a lot. You like when I get on scene of an incident, whether it's on or off the job, I got this constant this calm. I've developed this being able to be the calm center of the storm, and that's something that the fire department birthed. You run enough calls, you see enough things. You've been on commands of a ton of incidents, medical, special ops, low profile, high profile, everything from your cardiac arrest all the way to your things like Surfside or your major deployments, and you become experienced, wise, but you become calm during these incidents that otherwise would drive people off the walls. But you're right in terms of this job is amazing. This career is amazing. And I was a victim of this for a short time. There's so much you can do with it. And when you do a lot, when you get involved in training and teaching and with these groups and traveling to conferences, it's addictive. It's truly addictive. Like I love going to conferences. I love going to FDIC. I love going to Fort Lauderdale Fire Expo, Florida Fire Conference. I love going, but when I'm there, I'm not home. And I used to struggle with that. I don't much anymore. I've learned to really, Paula and I talk a lot. My wife and I talk, and we've achieved a balance, and that balance comes with her continuously reminding me, hey, you got a family here. Let's focus on this. And I love that we have that ability to be open with each other about that. But you're right. This job is wonderful. It can be addictive in some areas. It can drive you to do different things, but you got to have that focus. So I'm really happy you dove into that. Specific to special ops, though, I think the Venom One thing. Let's talk about that for a second, because everybody that I talk to about that, I go, yeah, my brother, he works for Miami-Dade. He's the Venom One guy. They're like, the what? I'm like, yeah, he's the guy that does everything from gets cats out of the trees to gives anti-venom. They're like, really? And the funny thing is, when I talk to people about Venom One and I show them the videos that you've given me of like you wrestling pythons and milking snakes and just messing with snakes, they freak out. I had no idea how many people did not like snakes. And it's so funny because you have these burly firefighters, these seasoned vets. They'll go into confined spaces, active shooter calls, third alarm fires. You show them a snake and they're like, nope, I'm good. I'm good. I don't want that. So talk to me about Venom One. Where'd it come from? What's it look like these days? Give me a backstory in that.
Sure. Well, the program started in '98, and it was because of a black mamba bite. And one of our lieutenants at the time, he became a chief. He's now retired. Lieutenant Al Cruz at the time. He had a lot of contacts within the reptile community, knew a lot of people. He was able to coordinate the transport and the administration of that necessary antivenom that saved that gentleman's life. And he thought, man, this is a great idea. We can make a unit out of this. So he presented that to our fire department, presented it to the commissioners, and that's how it happened. So it was started in '98. I think what really put us on the map, that gained us a lot of popularity, was Swamp Wars on Animal Planet. It was a series that ran from 2009 to 2011. So if you ever want to get like a brief overview of what we do, you can just Google that or YouTube it, and it just shows you the cast of characters, the legends that started this unit. So the main purpose of our job is to give anti-venom to people who've been bit by venomous snakes. But if you watch the show, we do so much more. There's invasive pythons. Burmese pythons. We have tens of thousands of them out in the Everglades that come inland, so they get into the residential area. So we end up catching a lot of those, handing them over to the FWC. Tegus, we are the capital for non-native invasive wildlife in Miami-Dade County. So we deal a lot with invasive species, and then domestic too, like cats, dogs. I spent some time with a possum that was in a school yesterday, in an elementary school. So it varies. But again, and the main purpose is the antivenom, right? We hold an antivenom bank. When we first started, we had 48 different antivenoms that covered 95% of the world's venomous bites. So it's not just snakes. We deal with scorpions. We deal with spiders as well. We've got a few down here that are venomous, a lot less than the snakes, but there's a few that are. And then also education. We're big on demos. So, man, we get booked really early in advance. I mean, we're very popular with the school system down here in the county. Like, the kids love us, or maybe it's not so much us. They just love the creatures that we bring in because we have demo snakes. We have a big Burmese python called Layla that I found, and she when I bring her out, the kids go crazy. So they demand us back. So we're lined up for that. We also do, PowerPoint lectures and all that with different fire departments, community service groups. The scouts love us as well. So education is a big one for us as well. So that's just a brief overview of it.
That's it's incredible. It's so funny. And you've been doing so much with that there. I think Miami-Dade recently started posting a lot of your stuff on social media, and it's getting a lot of traction. I know a lot of departments are having you come in to give them an overview of whatnot. You can expect an invite from me and Jupiter very soon to come over and chat with us too. So
You
just tell
guys
your
have a
bosses you're
lot.
gonna.
You guys have a lot of coral snakes up there, so we
Yeah,
can talk about
yeah.
that. So.
So, if you were to just to again, one thing that Bobby Halton always told me about this podcast when I started it, he goes, Steve, you can talk about whatever you want, okay, but you have to make it tangible for the listener. You have to make it tactical. In other words, what are they learning? What are they grasping from this and
Mhm.
garnering from this talk, whether it's leadership or tactics? So, from you, what are some things people need to know about snakes? Give me just a few things that are old wives' tales or things you need to walk
Mhm.
away from. When we think about snakes, give me three things that we need to walk away from in terms of those kind of things.
Mm. Yeah, it's good. Now I can go. There's a lot of old wives' tales. But so one of my favorite slides in the presentation that I give. We have about 100, probably 100 slides in the PowerPoint, but it's my favorite. And I always lead when I present it. I lead with if I could sum up my entire presentation, it would be with this one slide. And the picture is it's Batman and Robin, right? And Robin is reciting the coral snake rhyme. There's a rhyme that people say to remember, and he says, "Red on yellow, kill," and dot dot dot. He's thinking about it, and you see Batman just smacking him in the face, saying, "Just don't touch the snake. Just don't touch the snake." So, man, I can come out to your department, your community service group, whatever, and I can teach you to recognize out of the 44 native snakes we have in Florida, I can teach you to recognize the 6 venomous snakes that we have. But at the end of the day, just don't touch it. Just leave it alone. So that would be like my number one point. And I know it's so simple, but you got to understand, I'm coming from a position where 50% of our bites are from people that pick up a snake, and they think they know what they're doing, but they don't. That's 50% of our bites. So yeah, I would say just leave it. Um, Also, they're good for the environment too. The native ones, leave them be. You don't need to go lopping heads off. And coming from, I understand that. I understand that you want to protect your family. They're in your yard, but I guess the more we educate ourselves, the more we know that these are actually good. Like, hey, that's just a black racer. I know now, or that's a corn snake. Hey, I'm going to leave that in my yard because it's good for pest control. They're going to help
Mm.
me out. So they're good. And then, of course, I'd have to touch on what to do in a bite. Now that can get very extensive, so I can't. That's more of like a lecture format, but I think that's important just to get the brief to dos. And I think as medics, I like to start with medics on the don't, because we as paramedics we want to do so much, and sometimes that less is more. So tourniquets, we don't want to use tourniquets.
Mm.
A reason being is that's just going to concentrate the venom distally, and you're almost guaranteeing an amputation. So we don't use tourniquets. Now, if you're in a outside of the country and the hospital's far away, that's another topic that we can discuss. But here in the U.S., there's 5 to 6 deaths on average per year due to venomous bites, and that's because we have access to antivenom at the hospital. So we want to just get the patient to the hospital as quickly as we can, calmly. Keep the bite in a neutral position. We don't want to elevate it or lower it. Just initially when we're bit, keep it neutral. and just stay calm. The venom travels through the lymph system. So the more we move our muscles, the more it's going to travel through our system. And man, 911, of course, 911, a lot of times they'll reach out to us. Poison control is another. We work with them very closely. Everyone should have that memorized, I think. When we go through the academy, that should be a number that we memorize, 1-800-222-1222.
Mm-hmm.
So keep that in either you're stored in your phone or in the back of your head. And then I'll talk about specifics like with Venom One on maybe a little bit down the road. But I would say, that would be the gist of it. Some more of the don'ts would be we don't ice, we don't put ice, we don't suction the wound, we don't create incisions. There's a ton of articles out there from people a lot smarter than I that talk about how suctioning spreads it. So if you have those suction kits on your in your trauma boxes, don't use them for a snake bite. Pick something else. So that just we shouldn't have those. Electrical therapy, I've seen it all. So a lot of the don'ts are really important. So the do's: stay calm, keep it neutral, get to the hospital, call us.
Love it. I love, those are such great tactical things, and obviously talking to you more in detail about some of the things, the crazy things you've seen with people trying to treat these things. It's incredible. It's incredible what we see out there. The crazy things we see out there, whether it's snake bites or whatever. It's just amazing, right? So, I think about this in terms of how it started. You got a person that recognized a need and championed a team, put together this thing, it brought it forward and was able to justify this as a standalone team. And I think about that a lot in terms of the broader spectrum here, where you see that a lot in terms of people, whether it's starting a conference or starting a mobile integrated healthcare program or a health fair or a class like, Basil doing his one tough tour class or one bad tour class. All these people have these passion projects and they're able to dive into it and create something. I see that a lot now on the circuits, doing a lot of the training, keeping up on social media with a lot of the support on the fire service. And we need those people, those champions, those people that are cheerleading something that needs to be done and then following through with it, creating something. And I think about that a lot now as I'm here in Jupiter creating this fire department with this wonderful team as we build this. But there's a lot to that. There's a lot of joy that comes with that. There's a lot of need for it. Whether you're talking about like Brian Brush and all the people that are involved doing the firefighter rescue survey, they're giving us this amazing data set to validate some of the things that we're doing out there and show us real-time data, almost real-time data in terms of rescuing and all that kind of stuff. So my mind drifts when I think about the idea of somebody starting such an amazing team like this and how to do that today. So, and it's awesome where it is today, man. And I love the outreach. I love going out there, showing people what you're doing, not only for the sake of the snakes and the children aspect, but here's another thing that the fire service does that maybe you didn't know. That's something I love because people just still don't know what we do in the fire service. So I really love that you're out there educating those people, So in terms of education and we mentioned this before, I one of the things that has been on our minds lately is the passing of Captain Gustin, and I thought we would just out of respect and out of just a good reflection, kind of talk about that for a moment. And I know that you and I both, you working in Miami-Dade, me working in Fort Lauderdale for so long, we've come across them in various, paths. You've actually had to work. You've had the chance and the honor to work with them. And then for me, just as I was going through my career in terms of researching things like overhead doors, saws, forcible entry, hurricane standards, we just kind of clicked, and I used him as a resource, something fierce. And we just kind of bonded through different ways. And I learned a lot from him. But for you, let's talk about that. In other words, what did that look like for you? Like your work experience, maybe some things you've taken away from that, funny stories. What does that look like when you look back and you reflect?
And are you talking about specifically Captain Gustin?
You know what? Yeah, I am. I mean, looking back at him and the fact that he recently passed, I think, I reflect on him a lot in terms of what did I take from, what I learned from him, what do I model now because of my interaction with him? And I know it's different from you because you actually worked at the same station for a while, but what did that look like?
Yeah. So, man, right when I got promoted to lieutenant, there happened to be an opening at his station, and I said, man, I want it. I want it. So, and people try to talk me out of it. You're going to get destroyed. The Firehouse Run Reports every year has them as like the top 5 busiest units, and I'm like, man, I don't care. I want to be with the best, and I want to learn. So I love that mentality of getting thrown to the wolves. And I, man, he just accepted me in, from day one, and he took me under his wing, and I just learned so much, like a ton tactically, strategy, just the cool and calmness of how he took command. Like I modeled that. Like that's the way. I don't want to be a chicken with my head cut off on scene. I want to get there and control it. And he did so well at that. So I just I modeled that in the way I took command. I studied his articles. He's my favorite article writer. So man, I would cut out the fire engineering magazine, the pages, and I would make my own notebook of his articles. And of course, I've used many other articles as well. It's not just him, but I studied it. I would highlight them. I would go highlight, and I would just sit there and study and study and study. And man, a lot of I just from that, even I learned so much from him before I even got there and worked with him, because I was just studying his articles. But again, I can say so much of what I've learned, instructing with him too. I got a chance to go with him to the Fort Lauderdale Fire Expo with you. We got a chance to instruct side by side with him. There's a lot that I've learned, tactically like that. But I would say the biggest teaching point for me was something that he didn't even teach. I just absorbed it. And that was his humility. That was really powerful for me, because you got a guy here, got 40 plus years of experience. He's the most respected captain, most respected firefighter, maybe nationwide, maybe even the world, I think. I feel like he's a genius, not just in the fire service. He's a jack of all trades. He's got knowledge on anything. He can hold a conversation with me in my faith. We talked a lot about the Lord, and his knowledge base is great with everything. So if anyone's going to be prideful, he's got a right to be prideful, and he just never was. And I'm like, man, that's the way. That's the kind of officer I want to be. I want to study this trade, but man, I do not want to have that pride that I know it all. I want to be able to let the rookie come in, as I've seen him do with 2 months on, give him a seat at the table, and be able to bring up something. And Captain Gustin just completely listen and respond. He might not utilize the advice, but he listens. Everyone's got a seat at the table. Man, that was probably the most impactful thing for me. Train hard. I love it. We train hard. We're going to beat each other down physically, but we're going to build each other up mentally. Because sometimes that's lacking, so that would probably be my biggest one. I think I got a ton of stories of the silliness, man. I got a ton of them, some that I can't mention, of course I can't. And then, but man, I think my favorite one, and it wasn't even it's when I left. I got promoted to captain. I couldn't stay at the station because there was no spot. He had the bid, obviously. So I had to leave. I went to another station up north. And man, I would occasionally get these inner office envelopes, and it would be titled with my nickname, which I can't even say my nickname. So I know it's from him. He's the only one that called me that. So I know it's from him. Of course, there's no paper trail. His name's on it. And I'm like, man, this is kind of soft. I open it up, and it's his pillowcase. It's his dirty, crusty, filthy pillowcase. He would enter off his pillowcase, and it cracked me up. I just died laughing, and it wasn't just one, And what the funny part to me, as I'm thinking about it, is man, that would take probably the normal person 10 years to get that dirty, but he would send them consistently. So it's how does that happen? You get it, So, and I think it's because he just trained so hard. He did the Stairmaster every shift. And then I just think he just went to bed. He just didn't have time to shower. He just went to bed. So, man, that to me was probably the most memorable one. And I remember a buddy. I was working with a buddy of mine when he sent that day, and I'm like, man, we got to go outside. and we got to take a lighter to this thing to see how flammable this thing. And that thing took off. There's so many oils on there. The thing took off, man. So, but I got a ton of them. But that would be yeah, my most. And honestly, it's crazy that he was my mentor in the fire, right, in the fire service. But even when I went over to Venom, like, okay, who's going to be my mentor there? And he's because I said he's a jack of all trades, so we would still keep in touch. He was such a lover of animals, and he's talking about making policies for pets that are at home by themselves, and we have to take their loved one to the hospital, and like he just had this love. So he's still mentoring me outside of fire, So he was just a huge impact to me, and really shaped how I am as an officer still to this day, even even outside of fire, even in the animal field here.
It's those are great stories, man. How wonderful. I mean, it's interesting. We kind of just, I guess, we didn't take it for granted that he was, you worked with them. He's right in our backyard. We see him all the time at conferences. There's that possibility of taking it for granted when you go other places. Like when I go to FDIC and I go to these other conferences, he's revered. He's one of those guys. And obviously, well deserved, of course. I remember when I started doing a lot of research on, overhead doors and the saws and stuff, and I started developing classes and stuff. He was that guy I would call all the time. And same with you. I'm reviewing his articles, I'm reviewing his research. And what I remember is he never holding back in terms of giving information. In other words, there was no hoarding. There was no siloing. There was no feeling of I'm the guy, you need to learn it from me because I'm the guy. There was never that. Is Steve, here's everything I got. Here's this, here's that. Use it as you see fit. Go. And it was a good feeling. And I remember for a while when I was starting to do classes, when I was in the training bureau, this must have been 2012, 13. We were doing a lot of classes where we had props developed and we were doing things, and he would come over, to help us do stuff, whether it was at the training at the expos or just a lot of internal training. He would just be there with us and kind of walk us through things. And I remember years into it, like, I don't know, a few years after that, I called him up one day and I go, hey, we're doing a class. You want to come over here? And he yells at me. Yeah, he yells at me. He goes, Steve, you don't need me anymore. Why are you calling me? And at first, I'm like, sorry. But then I realized he's right. I got this. I'm good. Like I've got this. And I think for him, and I'm speculating, but I think it's accurate. He was starting to drift off into the high rise world and PRVs and PRDs and all of that stuff, and really get involved with Sprinkler-matic and all that. So he was reinventing himself. He had done all this other stuff on all the hurricane centers, glass, saws, doors. He saw me doing it and he's like, good. He's good. He's got this. Let me focus on something else. And it felt like this, I don't know, like a handoff, And for me, it was this feeling of, okay, well, I'm happy I'm doing this. I'm getting involved. I'm producing content. I'm teaching. I'm training. So it's the respect of, hey, thank you for passing this off to me, but now I've got to keep this going. What am I doing with it? And it brings me to FDIC a few years ago. So, actually, my first time at FDIC, a guy walks up to me. His name is Adam Haywood. He's out of Colorado. And he came up to me after my saw class. And he's like, hey, man, I love what you're doing. This is what I'm doing, too. I love saws. I love this. I love forcible entry. I'm starting my own company. I'm teaching a lot. And I remember at that moment thinking, well, I got a choice to make. I can either be like the guy, like, no, I'm the guy who just taught at FDIC. You have to come to me for information. I'm the guy. Or do I do what was modeled to me by him? In other words, he gave me everything. So that's exactly what I did. I gave Adam everything I had, not only stuff, but support and just encouragement. He called me on an article he was doing. I'm like, hey, listen, it's great. Let me review it for you. And now he's writing articles. He has a training company. He's teaching at conferences. He's got like 37,000 followers on Instagram, on saws and stuff. And I think some people could look at that and go, man, I'm a little jealous of that. I'm proud of him. I support him. But the biggest thing was, I think, after that, the year after I did my first leadership presentation at FDIC, it was leadership through training and the crucial role of the fire service instructor. And I was so honored. I had a packed house. I was just in my groove speaking, and halfway through, I didn't even realize he was there, but Gustin was there, and I had a couple of slides kind of referencing him. Right? Didn't even realize he snuck in. He snuck in. Right? He's in there watching, and this was right after Bobby Halton had passed away. So I'm doing my presentation, and I'm having a blast. There's so much interaction. It's such a good vibe. It was just perfect, right? About 10 minutes before the end of my presentation, he stands up right in the middle of the presentation. He just stands up. He goes, Steve. And I'm like, yeah, what's up, Cap? He goes, Steve, listen, I've got to go. I've got to go set up the thing for Bobby we're doing tonight. So I've got to leave. And I'm like, okay, well, thanks for coming. And he goes, Steve, and this is in front of everybody, you're 150, 250 people. He goes, Steve, you knocked it out of the park. You knocked it out of the park. And everybody's clapping. And I started crying right on stage.
Yeah.
I couldn't contain it. I started crying, and I recalibrated really quickly.
Yeah.
And he's walking away, and I just remember crying in front of him, right? And I recalibrated real quick and finished up. But I remember getting done with that presentation, and I was so happy. It was just a good interaction. But then I go back to the hotel room that night, and I literally cried. I just burst into tears. It was such a good feeling, and all I could do was cry because I was so happy. I mean, here's the guy that built part of who I am, and I was just in tears and being so happy, And it's just a really good memory. It's a really good memory. I'm so glad that happened,
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, there's a lot of good memories,
Yeah.
But so in terms of like lessons learned, and when you going back to the lessons learned and whatnot, and a lot of people listening to this listen to fire engineering. They know who he is. What would be some other things you think of as you think about him and legacy and stuff like that?
I'm sorry. Can you say that again?
So yeah, as you're thinking of him, and I think it's fitting to do him justice and talk about this near the end of this talk. But are there any other like lessons learned you think you gathered from him during the years that you haven't mentioned already? You mentioned a bunch, by the way. I mean, humility part of it, the training.
And I can. The list goes on when it comes to fire specific command tactics, but I just again, like just that the character of who he was. He would just like literally take his shirt off his back for anybody. So I just appreciated his kindness, and again, like you keep using that word humility, and I guess I'm such a big fan of that world because, Jesus is my hero, he's my savior, and he was the perfect example of humility. So when I see that coming from a leader that's so strong and respected, dude, that's just God given. That just doesn't come naturally. So that again, like the. And I would say that was it. That would be it. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot. Just looking at some of the notes I've taken from this conversation. This has been. I've enjoyed this conversation a lot. I think that one, it's wonderful to reflect on you and I's journeys through the fire service. Talking about family, talking about, how we were brought up and then how we are currently trying to model that in whether it's our teams, our departments in the community, or with our own kids, I think about that a lot. I dwell on that as I watch your oldest going into the Explorers of Boca, and I see mine and wonder what they're going to do and what my role is in that. So, as I'm just reflecting here, I'm going to kind of cover some of these notes, and it may lead to some other conversations, but, the life lessons, the fire service is more than just running calls. There's so much that we get out of it. And I would ask, as the listeners are just kind of listening into this podcast, to reflect on those things. I mean, it's one thing now as we build this fire department at Jupiter. One thing that's on my mind all the time is not just, how do we respond in an amazing way, and how do we our protocols and our tactics and our operational procedures and everything, but it's also how do we really care about the community and show them love and create a department that they love, but also how do we take care of the people in our organization and help them grow through the course of a career, not only vertically, but horizontally, and just as a better human being. And I think that what we've talked about here is beyond the job. And that's important. I hope the listeners realize that as we're talking about this, there's so much more than the fire service. The fire service is wonderful. It's amazing. It's awesome, but it's a chapter in this amazing life that you have. And there's so much to draw out of it. And I think we've talked about a lot of that today. I love that you talked about life is short, and through a lot of what we talked about, we can go down the rabbit hole on that, but you're right. Life is short. Life is short. Our lives are short. Life is short in general, and not to waste any of that time. So I'm glad you said that. You mentioned the word intentional, and I love the word intentional. In other words, pouring into your family, but you said intentionally doing it, not by accident, not just because it happens, but being deliberate and intentional in your actions. And I think there's a lot of power in that. I think that I find myself verbalizing that word a lot when I'm doing, whether I'm mentoring somebody at the firehouse or taking time with the family, but intentionally doing something with intent. So I'm glad you mentioned that word. I love that you talk about Venom One. That could be a whole other thing, and I'm sure I feel bad for you because after this, I have a feeling you're going to get a lot of phone calls from definitely around the South Florida area for more come and do classes.
Well, speaking of that, like I think it's important to get that, like, and that's okay. Can I sidetrack just a little bit?
Yeah.
So with Venom One, we cover the county, the Miami-Dade County area. But man, when it comes to bites, we cover the southeast region of the United States. We've gone even further out. Now a lot of the native snake bites you're going to find in the U.S., you're going to find a local hospital somewhere around you that's closer than us. But that doesn't mean that you can't call us for consultation. And we're also very excellent with identification. So if you have a picture that you want to send to the unit, by all means, you're open to do that. So it's 786-229-0736. That's the direct access to the Venom officer on duty. And you could just say, hey, I listened to you on the podcast. Can you help me out with this? This is in my backyard. I'm not even on duty. That's okay. That's okay. So we're there for that. And understanding it's a 3-person unit. So we have 1 captain and 2 lieutenants. So that's how we're staffed. When we get that Kelly day or that CR day, whatever you call it, we don't backfill the position. So you got to understand that it's not always staffed, but nonetheless, if you call that number, and nobody answers, it gets forwarded to our dispatch, and our dispatch reaches out to us off duty, especially when it comes to snake related things, because it's really important to us, and that's how we keep it running. So we will answer that call off duty. We will talk to the hospitals, the doctors, the nurses, give our 2 cents, because we've seen a lot. We're attached to one of the best, I think, toxicologists in the country down here in the Miami Poison Control Center, Dr. Bernstein. The guy's on point. The guy's passionate. Call him at 2 a.m. He will pick up, and he will talk to his techs and figure out which antivenom is going to be best for the patient. And where is his eyes and ears out there in the field. So, yeah, we're at your service. And then again, like for demos, now we're not going to fly out to like the middle of the country for like a presentation, but I would say like the Tri-County area, if that's something that your department would like, just give that number a call. We'll talk about it.
I love it. That's amazing. And the last thing, just reflecting on the notes here, I'm glad we've reflected on Bill, on Captain Gustin. It was, as much as he's impacted a zillion people, including you and I in very different ways. The idea of modeling behavior, taking someone under your wing, the humility aspect, when it's modeled to you, when you see it in real time, it's one thing to say humble. It's one thing to talk about the word, the act, the of being humble. But when you see it in real time, you see what's expected, and there's so much power in that. And
Mhm.
I think, and everything from the training and the little antics and whatnot. But I think that, again, talking to the listener here, I think that, we're talking about somebody like Bill. That's a legend, obviously. But I would also remind everybody that each of us, in some way, shape, or form, is impacting and influencing somebody else right this second. And whether it's you and I having this conversation and there's somebody listening and something's clicking, or at the firehouse talking to somebody, I think you mentioned it. Everybody has a seat at the table. And I don't think we realize sometimes the impact we have on people. In fact, I know that we don't realize the impact and the influence we have on people. We may see it from time to time. We may hear about it. We may get thank yous, but we don't see it all. So as much as Gustin had that influence, we all in the fire service have a certain platform. We're all always influencing, and we have to be cognizant of that.
And Steve, that's the good and the bad, the influencing, right? So, I mean, we could take that into consideration as well. It's like we can, not knowing, we can influence for the worse, So that's just really important as I see the younger generation come through. And that's crazy for me to say. I felt like I've always been like the kid, the youngest, 27 years. That's just amazing to me. But as I see them come through, man, they like, if they get set up with somebody who doesn't have that positive influence, it's contagious, man. So just be cognizant of that. And especially as officers, we need to set set the stage with that, to set the example so that our senior firefighters can follow in that and then portray that to the younger ones,
Yeah, 100%. And that's a perfect way to start ending this off right here. So before I ask you for some last words, what I want to do is I want to end with gratitude as well. I want to thank everybody for listening to this podcast, but more importantly, I want to thank the families. We've been talking about family. I want to thank the families. I want to thank our mom and dad. They're going to listen to this, right? Mom and dad are going to listen to this. So I think it's important for us to thank them. I think it's important to thank our families for dealing with us when we're away, when we're off on shift, when we're deployed, when we're all, whatever that looks like, our individual families for, being there for us when we get back from everything we do here. It's so important. So, my wife's downstairs right now and I think she hears me, but I thank you, but it's just like that thankful, for the people who are listening. Just remember to thank your families. Just if you're walking away, if you're not going to do anything else after listening to this, thank your families for that support they give you. I mean, we love this job. It's great. There's so much to do with this job, but we have to remember our families at home. We have to remember the people that are waiting for us when we come back from our shifts, from our tours and all that.
Amen.
So for you, last words, final words, any final thoughts?
No. And you just saying that makes me think, we talked a little bit about dad and how thankful we are for that pressing, but man, mom as well. Like, we both, dad was an Eagle Scout. Both you and I are Eagle Scouts. Our boys don't have a choice. They're going to be Eagle Scouts, right? But we wouldn't be Eagle Scouts if it wasn't for mom, right? Like that, she had a huge impact too of pressing us. So man, we're very fortunate, man, Steve, we're very fortunate to have the parents that we have, not everybody is fortunate to have that, but, I'm thankful for them. Something else that just came to mind, I really feel like the Lord pressed this on me is that like Captain Gustin would always say, be a student of the fire service, that he loves that. You'd never stop, be a lifelong student of the fire service. And I just thinking like, man, that great dude. Yes. Amen. Like do that, but be a student of your family as well, and just learn, like educate yourself on them, study them, pursue their hearts, be intentional, and engage. So I would say as much as you do that with the fire service, double it with your family.
That is the perfect way to end this conversation. I couldn't have said it better. So we talked about a lot. I've always, like I said, I always do this. Russ, thanks for joining me today. I know you're busy and you got family and I got family and work and everything. And but thanks for taking the time. This has been special, man. I really appreciate this.
For sure. Yeah. No. Likewise. It's been fun.
Yeah. So as we close off, talking to the listeners here, as we remember, I always try to leave things with tactical things in nature. And I think we did that. We did that in justice. We did Chief Halton justice by doing a lot of that during this conversation. Rusty mentioned Venom One, how to get in touch with them if you ever need them. Please take them up on that. They're always out there to educate and whatnot. And as always, thank you for listening to the Perspectives on Leadership podcast. These episodes typically drop on the second Friday of the month. I always want to thank people that have reached out, texted, emailed, called me, and found value with this. It encourages me to do this more and provide more value in the fire service. So I'm full of gratitude, and I'm very thankful. So thank you for all tuning in. Much appreciated. Be safe out there, and we'll see you next time. Take care.